Hi, I'm Hannah.
And I'm Matt Hannah.
And this is Horror Hour with the Hannahs.
And I don't know if all the listeners know, but Hannah and I are married.
This is true, yes.
This is true life.
True
so that
fact.
means we know a lot about romance and relationships.
Hell yeah, we do.
And sometimes Valentine's Day.
Sometimes.
And as we were hitting on these Valentine's Day, we decided we would talk about romance and couples and even a little bit of Valentine's Day in horror movies. Yes. And that we would bring a bunch of our friends along to talk about it as well.
Yeah, we have a ton of different friends on to talk about some of their favorite couples in horror, least favorite couples in horror, favorite movies to watch around Valentine's Day, movies that present a love story but are kind of fucked up for that. And even why horror is a great place to discuss romance. But Matt, while we have our brief time on the mic, what do you want to chat about?
Oh, I mean, I keep talking about The Fly because I watched it recently and it became one of my favorite horror couples in that movie. But we actually have an episode where we talked all about The Fly on Cinematic Doctrine. So go check that one out. And I don't need to chat more about it here.
When the episode comes out, we will post about it on our socials so you know to go listen.
Hannah, do you have any Valentine's Day stuff you want to talk about?
Well, I certainly have my most compelling couples in horror. The Fly is definitely one of them. We've also talked about Together on the podcast, and they're another couple that they might not be a perfect couple, certainly not, but I find Millie and Tim in Together very compelling. But speaking of Together, I have a list of horror movies that I put together that I recommend watching for Valentine's Day, or that I haven't seen, but I want to watch for this coming Valentine's Day. I'm still planning to fit some of them in, so do you want to hear my list?
Sure.
Okay, so I have 10 movies on my recommendations for Valentine's Day list, plus a bonus one. So really I could say 11, but it doesn't sound as good as 10. So it's 10 with a bonus. Okay, so my first one is Together. Also Hard Eyes. So we have two 2025 horror new releases that I think are perfect watches.
We had a couple of romantic horror movies come out. Bone Lake included.
But that wasn't our favorite, but
I know.
I think
Also, there was surprise incest in that movie.
Surprise! Bonus content.
Ugh.
But if a lot of people did like that movie, so I mean, if you haven't checked it out yet, I guess Bone Lake could fit in the list too. Twilight, obviously. I mean, be real.
We have an episode on that too. Do we have episodes on all these movies you're about to name?
No.
Okay.
The Little Shop of Horrors.
Love it.
We don't
with
have
the
an
original
episode on
ending, the bleak ending. That's what I want.
I do love the bleak
ending. Where
ending.
Audrey dies and Audrey 2 takes over the world.
That's a fantastic fucking movie. I think it's so funny and camp, and You'll Be a Dentist goes too hard for what it's a song
Shout out
about.
Steve Martin.
It's so fun. I have another musical, Phantom of the Opera, but specifically the 25th annual staged version because I don't think the Gerard Butler film is very good.
It's not.
It's specifically Gerard Butler's fault that it's not very good. Sorry, sir, because I do think Patrick Wilson's great. Emmy Rossum is good too. Yeah, so sorry, Gerard, but the staged version that's filmed for the 25th anniversary of the show is gorgeous, stunning, amazing.
What's it, at Majestic Hall or something?
At Royal Albert Hall.
Oh, my bad. I'm stupid. Majestics where it used to actually be.
In New York.
Yeah,
yes.
You're right. Royal Albert Hall.
Royal Albert Hall, yes, is the 25th annual filmed version.
Yeah, it's the best version. You can watch that.
It's so good. So highly recommend. Broadway loves to hype it as like the most romantic love story ever told.
Yeah, I don't know what that means, but
it's a fucked up love story, but that's why it's perfect for horror lovers. Also, The Shape of Water, which we will be covering on our show next week, so we won't get into it too much now. Warm Bodies.
Classic.
Duh. Fresh.
Never saw. Do you like that one?
I had a lot of fun with it. I feel like the couple in the beginning of the film has really great chemistry. I was like, oh shit, I'm feeling it. But I don't want to tell you what happens to them because that's for you to find out. There's a fun little twist there. The Village. I know you also haven't seen The Village, but like iconic love story.
As an M. Night Shyamalan lover, I probably do need to watch it.
I was thinking we should cover it for Valentine's Day, but then with all the GDT conversation, I figured, I wanted to cover The Shape of Water over The Village, but next Valentine's Day is when M. Night's new movie comes out. It got pushed. It was supposed to be this October, and it got pushed to like February of next year.
Okay.
So I figure
do an M. Night lead up.
Do The Village and that for Valentine's Day. Good to me. And I'm definitely going to read the book because it's a book with him and Nicholas Sparks, and I am thrilled and scared. Also, apparently Jake Gyllenhaal is the lead in that, which, holy shit. So, like, maybe it'll be
Two Men I Love.
Great. Who's to say? Okay, and then Jennifer's Body has real love. Pick. It has friend love. Queer love. And the bonus is Scream.
I love that. Yeah, little Stu and Billy romance that we're talking about here.
Queer love.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
And definitely friend love. I thought that and Jennifer's Body.
Or what about like Saw the Musical? That also has queer love in it.
We saw that staged in Philly and it was so fun.
It's great.
If Saw the Musical is ever near you,
go see it.
You should definitely see it. It's so silly, but it's a great time. Like the toilet, incredible. And 5 Valentine's Day horror movies that I haven't watched that I wanted to get to. Couple recent ones, Lisa Frankenstein and Your Monster. I never ended up actually seeing those when they came out about 2 years ago, and I want to. And then I also have on my to-watch list Crimson Peak. Again, GDT coming in hot. Spring and May.
I haven't heard of either of those. Or Your Monster.
That's wild that you haven't heard of Your Monster. It's our horror screen queen, Melissa Barrera. So
nice.
check that shit out.
Cool.
Well, I will check that shit out for sure. So, I'm definitely prioritizing that before Valentine's Day.
Is there any other couples or movies we got to talk about, or should we just send this on to the guests?
I did want to point out, obviously, there's a lot of like really cool horrors and thrillers that have portrayals of relationship, lost love, like grief related to romance that I really enjoy, but that didn't really feel appropriate to be like, hey, watch these really sad movies for Valentine's Day. Like that didn't fit to me. So I did want to shout out A Ghost Story.
Oh, I love that movie.
Mulholland Drive.
No, you should definitely watch Mulholland Drive for Valentine's Day. That's an any time of year movie.
That is probably true. That doesn't fit as in here as well. The end is fucked up.
I don't care. It's great.
A Ghost Story, Mulholland Drive, Nocturnal Animals.
I also love that movie.
That's
one of my favorites.
Up. And Nosferatu.
Good, close enough. And Bram Stoker's Dracula.
That one is
which
just
is
like
better than Nosferatu.
Blatantly watch it for Valentine's Day movie.
You could. You're right. You could watch.
I don't think that's like a
watch Bram Stoker's Dracula, Francis Ford Coppola for Valentine's Day. It's great.
I'm planning to record a TikTok of a horror or horror adjacent movies that I like way less than the average person, and Bram Stoker's Dracula is on my list.
You're the worst.
Yeah,
it's a great movie. You just don't understand the vision.
Episode of that from last year, but yeah, I did not understand the vision. The maximalism in it isn't for me.
If I did a mood board for 2026, I'd put stuff from that.
That's so
but I
wouldn't
do a mood board. So
you're not a mood board type
guy.
Not
a mood board kind of guy. I would do Cary Elwes in that movie.
I would do.
Did you forget he was in it?
No, I did not. How could I forget that? How could I forget my boy?
Yeah, and then I would
do him from Princess Bride.
I was going to say grab that, and then also since we just watched When Harry Met Sally.
Oh my gosh.
Anything from that.
True.
Just give me maybe a Cary Elwes and Billy Crystal mood board. That feels right to me.
Saw.
Yeah,
that can obviously go on there.
Yeah, just like him bleeding out on the floor. That's going to be on my mood board when they make him really awesome. Gray.
Yeah, that's the exact image I was thinking of, was him really gray.
I'll come back for you. He's like whispering, I'll go get help. Crawls out.
And you're like, this performance is interesting for a really talented guy.
Rest in peace, Adam.
I was like, Cary Elwes is not dead. So
no, I meant Lee Whannell's character in Saw.
Yeah, I figured that out actually.
So Hannah, why do you think there are so many horror movies that have both like romance and Valentine's Day subplots?
Well, I don't think a lot of them have Valentine's Day subplots, or at least a lot of the good ones don't, if we're being real. Like, I don't love My Bloody Valentine or the slasher Valentine, But Hard Eyes is like definitely the best Valentine's Day and horror slasher, in my opinion, that I've seen. Not that I've seen a lot of them. But I do think love and sex and loss of love and terrible relationships all very much have a place in horror. I think horror obviously is a really great space to kind of confront our fears, confront things that scare us, make us disgusted, cause us general anxiety, feelings that are unpleasant. And obviously, there is something that can be really challenging and unpleasant about intimacy, being vulnerable with another person and not knowing if they'll reciprocate your feelings or your vulnerability back. Not every romance is a good one, and so I do think that horror is like a really fun way to explore that.
I agree with everything you said, and I don't think I can say it any better.
Okay.
And I'll also add that I think like intimacy and sex in horror, especially in body horror, are used a lot because it's like a fear or an anxiety that a lot of people have. And I think it's something that really works well together and gets under a lot of people's skin. And it's something that I think everyone can relate to. So I think it's a really good medium to use those as scares. So overall, yeah, I think these can really go well together. I think it was fun to see something like Hard Eyes where it was like, let's just make a parody of a rom-com, but use like a slasher movie as the backdrop. Mm-hmm. But I also really enjoy when we see really compelling characters and relationships within our horror movies.
Yeah.
Also, we don't really talk about this, but having loving characters in your horror movie makes it even scarier when their relationship is at stake or like their lives are at stake. I think of a movie like Poltergeist where I really enjoy the parents' dynamic and their relationship that feels very real. So when their family is being torn apart by ghosts in their home or the titular poltergeists in their home, it hits even harder because I can relate to them more. Now that might not be a Valentine's Day movie, but I did say that is like a very romantic and real feeling couple. Yeah. And one of my favorites in there.
I completely agree.
Yeah. That's all I really got, though, on this front. We have plenty of episodes where we talk about romance and sex in horror movies, so go check them out.
And we have a ton of other voices coming in the episode to share their thoughts, so we don't need to go on any longer about that.
Yeah, have fun for the next 2 hours. That's how popular we are. We have 2 hours of people helping us out.
I don't know if that has to do with our
popularity. It has everything to do with our popularity and how much everyone likes us and how awesome we are and how funny and good looking and charming we are.
We're so funny, maybe.
Yeah. All right, well, we will leave them to it. So thank you again, everyone that helped us out, and everyone listening, go give all of them follows, please.
Woo! Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. We'll see you in the next one.
What do you love?
I love Frank's red hot goldfish.
You said they were gross.
They kind of grow on you. Do you have an actual icebreaker? Or?
That was it. What do you love? And you said Frank's red hot goldfish. Hello and welcome to Gutted. I'm Elise.
And I'm Tony, and we're here to spill our guts about horror
films. And movies.
Films. All of that.
We've been on a hiatus. We have not recorded in at least a month and a half. But luckily we have a lovely little horror community that invites us to be on their shows.
Yeah, so shout out to Horror Hour with the Hannahs.
We were last on their show for, I think it was September, Mental Health and Horror.
Yeah.
We were lucky enough to be asked back for their Valentine's Day episode.
And in true Gutted Horror podcast form, we want to do a little mini version of one of the segments that we have recurring across most of our episodes. Awards.
We love giving awards. We're just so giving.
You get an award. You all get awards. You get an award.
You're all special. This is mostly for different kinds of relationships. It doesn't just have to be a romantic relationship.
Romantic relationships that I've seen this year in horror have been awful ones. But so I think that Elise has created a list of awards and nominees, and I'm supposed to select the winner. Just like the Oscars, whatever is probably the best option is not going to get picked because it's heavily skewed by
Tony.
By me.
Without further delay, our Gutted Awards begins now. Okay, the first category, Best Buddies. The love that a human might have with a creature. And there are only 2 nominees for this one because I couldn't think of any
I already
others.
have the winner. I know exactly what it's going to be, but okay, let's go for it.
Nominee number 1, Elliot, Ridley, and the Unicorns from Death of a Unicorn. That's nominee number 1. And number 2 is...
the winner. Yes, I already know. You don't have to say it. It's Indy and his owner from Good Boy.
Yeah. Even though human Todd was not the best human in the movie, in the flashbacks, you can tell that he was a really good human. Indy just loved him. And Indy knew that he wasn't feeling well for whatever reason and did his best to protect him from, I don't know, death.
Like one of the best performances by an animal of all time.
Indy did win an award recently for best performance at the Astra Awards.
And I think won over humans.
Indy won over Sally Hawkins.
I'm sure Sally Hawkins is like, what the
She's
fuck
like, what
is
the
this?
hell?
Yeah.
4 more categories here. Best familial bond. Siblings Chloe and Tyler from Presence. A father and son duo, Archer and his son Matthew from Weapons. Archer, played by Josh Brolin, goes through great lengths to find out what happened to his son Matthew.
Yeah,
Even
and his
though
kid was a little shit, too.
not the best kid. We have another pair of siblings, Andy and Piper from Bring Her Back. Mother and son, Spike and Mama Isla. Spike played by Alfie Williams and Isla played by Jodie Comer in 28 Years Later.
Yeah. Didn't Isla think that Spike was her dad, though?
She
most
called
of the
him
time?
dad one time. There's one more.
Okay.
The Chosen family in Predator Badlands. That includes the Predator, Thea, played by Elle Fanning, the little alien buddy named Bud, and that little snake buddy that comes around at the end.
Actually, I think I know what the winner is. The relationship between Andy and Piper in Bring Her Back was probably the strongest bond. This brother doing everything that he could to kind of shield and protect his sister.
I know, and he's only 17 and he has to grow up way too fast and be the parent for his younger sister.
I'm going to go with Andy and Piper from Bring Her
Andy
Back.
and Piper, so touching. Moving on, our best platonic partnership. The Jester and Max from The Jester 2 is more like a mentor-mentee situation. Danica and Ava from I Know What You Did Last Summer 2025, how far these friends were willing to go for one another. Dr. Kelson and Samson from 28 Years Later. Samson wasn't too aware of his role in this relationship. However, Dr. Kelson didn't care. Jimmy and Stiggs from Jimmy and Stiggs. Another situation of 2 buddies willing to go to extreme lengths for one another. And lastly, we have Stefan and Tony, aka Jeffrey Rush and George Hanare from The Rule of Jenny Penn. Initially, they aren't the best of friends. Tony really tries. Stefan kind of rebuffs him. And then in the end, they come together to fight the common enemy, and they do become friends.
These are some tough choices because these are all great platonic relationships. My choice is going to be Jimmy and Stiggs.
Wow.
I went with Jimmy and Stiggs because not only is it in the title of the friendship of these 2 people, they have each other's backs, even though at one point, doesn't Stiggs turn on Jimmy?
So Jimmy and Stiggs have had a turbulent relationship as friends.
Yeah.
Jimmy is kind of an asshole. He needs help and he's paranoid and he calls on his friend Stiggs.
Yeah.
Stiggs, even though they've had a falling out, still goes to him because of their past.
They still come together to support each other as friends.
Yeah. 2 more categories left. We have the will they, won't they couple. Okay, we have Frankenstein's monster, played by Jacob Elordi, and Elizabeth, played by Mia Goth in Frankenstein. We have Teddy and Danica from I Know What You Did Last Summer.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't remember jack shit from I Know What You Did Last Summer. I was not a fan of
Teddy and Danica were engaged. And then after their incident, they had a falling out and then became unengaged. But then the next year, they obviously still had feelings for one another. And it's like, ooh, are they going to again? We don't know. Third nominee, we have Raymond and Peter, aka Cooper Hoffman and David Johnson from The Long Walk, where David Johnson's character kind of implies to Cooper Hoffman's character that he's gay. And at first, Cooper Hoffman's character doesn't know how to take that. But then as they continue on their journey, does their bond grow platonically or does it grow more than that? And then lastly, we have Selena and Screamboat Willie from Screamboat. You know, she dressed as Minnie Mouse at one point and he was really into it. So who knows? Will they?
I think I have to go with Raymond and Peter.
it was beautiful.
From The Long Walk.
Yes.
Yeah. That relationship was so strong.
And our very last category, we have the best romantic partners. Spoiler, I do not.
Spoiler, there are none.
Spoiler, I do not have the couple from Together because I did not actually enjoy them as a couple, even though they are a real life couple.
They were codependent.
I did feel like their relationship was a bit codependent and unhealthy. But I did nominate the rekindled relationship between Annie, played by Wunmi Mosaku, and Elijah, or Smoke, played by Michael B. Jordan from Sinners. We have fiancés Kelsey and Poppy, aka Jack Haven and Margaret Cho from Queens of the Dead. I thought they were so cute. I loved them. Eli and Patrick, aka Harvey Guillen and Lucas Gage from Companion. Fictional and real life married couple Scott and Liv, aka Justin Long and Kate Bosworth from Coyotes.
Oh.
Ooh, and one more. Our favorite Airbnb crashers from Bone Lake, Will and Sin.
Oh my goodness.
Could be a controversial selection, but it's in there because they were actually a good couple. They knew how to compromise and yes and one another.
See, I was over here thinking that there weren't any good romantic couples in 2025.
Did I prove you wrong?
You did prove me wrong.
Thank you.
Yeah, you did prove me wrong. I'm going to go with Harvey Guillen and Lucas Gage as Eli and Patrick. Okay, so it's also a little bit of a spoiler, but anyways.
It's a little bit of a spoiler, but we find out like halfway through.
Patrick is Eli's love bot, a companion. And you actually do believe that Eli loved Patrick despite him being a robot, essentially.
And to me, what was so touching is when Patrick, the companion, says, I've known for a while and I don't care. I love you anyway.
That's gonna be my winner. Yeah,
I like that. That's my winner too.
Yeah. All right. Is that it?
That's it.
All kinds of different love here.
Yes.
Before, when you're asking, is there something I love? Yes, I love this list.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Horror Hour at the Hannahs, for having us. Happy season of love, whatever love you may have.
Thank you very much.
Hello, hello. We are from the Movies and Us podcast. My name is Jennifer Hahn.
And I'm Sarah Callan.
And we're so excited to be part of this collab episode with the Hannahs. Shout out, thank you to Matt and Hannah. Really nice to be part of this. We have gotten to review some really great things with them. And so we always just love potting together and being a part of some really great themed collab episodes that they've done. The mental health one I thought was so meaningful and impactful. And what better way to celebrate the month of love by talking about horror? Nothing more romantic, you know? So today we're excited to be talking about some of our thoughts and reflections on horror romances and some of the things that we are particularly captivated by. So, Sarah, I'm curious for you, when we think about horror romances and the way that romance is often depicted or the stories that are in horror films, what are those dimensions that are really fascinating about this medium and this type of story for this genre?
Yeah, I think the idea of horror romance is actually really interesting because it's able to kind of portray some of the toxicity that we see in relationships in a very like big and real and visceral way. So just kind of as I was mulling over this idea, I was thinking about how this is really different compared to something like a rom-com. And I feel like a lot of times in like romantic films or rom-coms, there's some really toxic things happening in the relationship, but we're supposed to root for that relationship, even though it might cause the people in the relationship harm. And so the idea of a horror romance, I think, is really interesting because you're able to show maybe some of these toxic things or even some like cultural toxicity around relationships through horror. And that's just such a different way of tackling the subject of romance. So I'm fascinated by this prompt. I'm still going to be thinking about this for quite a while because it's just such a different way of looking at romance.
Yeah. And I think one of the really great things about horror as a genre is it's able to take these dynamics and really like blow them up for us to really examine them and experience those things that might happen in like micro ways in reality. But like, let's dig into this a little bit more, you know, like let's really play this out. And I think in general, in like literature for centuries and in a lot of the films that are coming out now, there's this fascination or there's a trope of like a horrifying male-coded figure, a beastly figure, and kind of this pure, innocent, gentle, woe is me female protagonist that is then like possessed by or there's a power dynamic that's being played out between these two characters. So a film that we got to review recently that I thought was particularly fascinating is Robert Eggers' Nosferatu, and him taking this classic story and bringing it to the screen. And there's so many elements that are using the horror genre stereotypes and whatnot from a cinematic perspective, but also the story itself is literally about a woman being drawn to and being possessed by and owned by a vampire who is horrifying. And there's this very clear power dynamic that's at play here. And there's other more gentle versions of this that are maybe like something that some are rooting for. So in Guillermo del Toro's recent Frankenstein, also a creature-like figure, some might see as like beastly, with this pure gentle Goth character. And there's this like love scene, this flirtation, there's this connection that they have. And so there's the toxicity and power dynamics of male-female coded relationships and these gender roles that I think are really interestingly explored in horror romances. And we get to see like this powerful figure in the male coded figure and character really kind of dominating and taking control of the female protagonist. And I think that's a fascinating dynamic that's often explored in literature, but especially in put to the big screen visually in horror films as well.
Yeah, which makes me think of a lot of the like vampire stories that we have, whether in literature or in movies. And it's, you know, vampires are so sexy and it's this whole alluring thing. But when you think about it, it's actually really grotesque and it's really horrifying what you see. And it's just interesting that so many movies and books have paired those two things together, that, you know, you have these really beautiful vampires and then the woman is lured in and their life is literally sucked out of her. Like it's just such an like, I mean, that's obviously very like toxic and bad and such a popular form of literature, a popular form of movies. I don't feel like we get as many vampire movies as we did, you know, like 10, 20 years ago, but it's kind of fascinating how these things are kind of blurred together. And I don't know, there's something interesting and alluring about that toxic, dangerous relationship that we see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that, you know, obviously so much of horror is around fear, and there's a lot of real world dynamics around the way that women are often in positions where they need to be fearful of their environments, careful of their environments. And that is kind of like blown up and portrayed more fully when we see a character that is like entering into the lair of Nosferatu and is terrified, but it somehow also it's always mixed in with sometimes this weird like she's just drawn to it in a way as well. So like the vampire like stereotype, it's horrifying in some depictions, but it's also attractive in other depictions, which I think is like playing with these ideas of like fear and desire being kind of intertwined more closely than we think. You could argue in Frankenstein as well, in Guillermo del Toro's recent depiction. There's a fear of the creature, and yet there's a lure and a fascination with it as well that they then are curious about each other. So the lines can be real blurry sometimes in this genre of like, yeah, it's preying on real world dynamics, but also trying to flip it and reframe it and add these other colored dimensions into it as well. Maybe to make it more intriguing for us as the viewers to wrestle with the dissonance we feel watching this character fall into the traps and be possessed by these big grotesque figures.
Yeah, it's the bad boy trope just on steroids is really what it is.
And that goes all the way back to like things we watch as a kid, you know?
Yeah.
Like you could argue that Beauty and the Beast is a horror romance, okay? It's just horror romance for children.
Yeah, he locks her in a basement. Although the like witch at the beginning of that who casts the spell on him, I think she's the true villain of that movie. But that's a whole nother topic for another day. But yeah, I feel like that totally fits into it. You know, he is horrible to her and he is a horrifying creature until he's not.
Exactly. One of the things that I found really interesting that you said earlier is around like the comparison between romance depicted in romantic comedies or romance movies and in horror. In horror, there's almost permission for us to look at this and say, that is really bad. That's not okay. He's being terrible. And we need to like acknowledge, and that is like to be feared. But there's a lot of behaviors that are quite similar in romance movies that we almost put on a pedestal. We're like, yes, this is acceptable behavior. And so to have the horror space as a way to explore and to be honest about the things that are toxic in some of our romantic relationships that are not okay, and to like really play that out fully, I think is healthy. You know, like we need to be horrified at these things and see strands of maybe similarities of that in our real world dynamics.
And this is why people don't watch rom-coms with me, because I am that person where I'm watching and I'm going, hey, that's not okay though.
Yep.
I'll watch a horror romance any day though. That's so much more fun.
Very fun indeed. Well, we had some reflections, some thoughts to say. It was a really interesting prompt. Just thank you to Matt and Hannah for bringing this concept of horror romance. I'm so curious to hear what everybody else's different perspectives are by looking at the same thing. It's like we're all like looking at the same thing in a center from many different perspectives. And this was our dimension. Toxicity in romantic relationships. Horror being a great place to explore those things. So thank you so much. We can't wait to hear everyone else's thoughts, and we'll have the next clip play here.
Hey everybody, this is producer Brian from Talking Horror, and we have our two fabulous hosts with us today. They're here every day, Jamie Plofsky and Nikisha Williams. And we're gonna each pick our favorite kind of like romantic horror movie. However, it doesn't matter. We'll go around the horn and we'll see who's right and who's wrong.
That's a perfect.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Stakes are high.
Stakes are high. Get ready.
Okay.
Just as a reminder, we are a podcast that talks horror movies through the lens of mental health and human behavior. So check us out. Who wants to start?
I'll start.
Okay.
I will kick it off. And you know what? I don't even care if I'm right or wrong, because I know in my heart of hearts I am right, because my favorite romantic horror-esque movie is Your Monster. Sorry.
That was mine too.
Yep.
Oh, you're like, I gotta go first because I have the best one.
Yeah.
Exactly. I gotta get it out there before anyone says anything. So if you don't know, Your Monster, 2024 movie with Melissa Barrera and Tommy Dewey. And all I have to say about it, it's a movie about falling in love with your demons. And isn't that what Valentine's Day and romance is about? Falling in love with your demons.
Goosebumps. You gave me goosebumps. Not the not the book or TV series of the movie, like actual skin goosebumps.
Mm-hmm, I love it. Yes. But yeah, it's a wonderful movie that mixes camp and horror and, you know, the whole falling in love bits. It's just a blast. And it's gory.
And musicals.
I love gore. Oh, duh. Why would I not say musicals first? Yes, it's a great time. Brian, do you have other things to add of why you like it?
I just think it's charming. I also went in with no expectations and left it just like exploding with joy. I think their chemistry is spectacular. I think that anybody who deserves something in that movie gets what they deserved. And quite frankly, you know, we all love musicals here. And while it is not a musical per se, so Melissa Barrera plays an actress who basically is trying to get her mojo back, and finds the monster in her closet, you know, and you know, chaos ensues. But I don't know. It's just charming. and fun and genuinely funny, and unsettling, and had a blast. I've seen it like 3 or 4 times at this point because it is just chef's kiss.
Yeah, it's a
Jamie,
great time.
Was that yours too?
That was on like my list in my brain. But that wasn't the first one like instinctually that I thought of, but it is everything that you've described. It's so good and charming and like, yeah, just really captures our inner, either teeny tiny little monster or big overbearing, gnarly, destructive monster.
Totally.
Yet very cute, you know?
Very cute.
Absolutely. That one came
Very
out of left
cutesy.
field. Yeah, in terms
Yes,
of being
it
like
did.
cutesy.
Kitsy.
So what was your instinctual? Yeah.
Cutesy. What's the small
Fun
things?
size.
Fun size. That's it. That's
From
that's
VHS
it.
Halloween.
From VHS
Oh my
Halloween.
God.
Yeah.
Fun
size.
Anyway, we're not talking
I
about
forgot
Halloween.
all
We're talking
about
about
that.
Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so the thing that came first to mind, and to be fair, I haven't watched it in a very long time, but it is
Sure.
one of the things I think of when I think of, horror rom-com is Warm Bodies. Nicholas Hoult.
Also
Yes.
on my list. Yes.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, that's so
Yeah,
funny. See, we're
I
always
forgot.
on the same page. But
Double cancer. Oh my God. Across the sky.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
yeah, same star sign, it's kismet. But this one stars Nicholas Hoult as a zombie who is fawning over an alive person. And it's just like, again, like a really, silly, charming take on romance, but from the perspective of a zombie apocalypse.
Yes.
So, we love a little twisted spin on, existing tropes. And I think that in a time where I think maybe zombie movies were really, overwhelming the market, I think taking a little bit of a twist on it did this movie, a service. So
I agree. Yeah. It's so much fun, and I love Nicholas Hoult in anything, honestly. So
Yeah.
a real like horror king. Like he's like, in a lot of stuff. So
Agreed. Like secretly
Yeah.
almost.
right. Like you forget that he's done a lot of horror movies.
A ton.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had some other ideas. Like Your Monsters I just really like. But I think there are definitely horror movies that are romantic, that aren't necessarily like romance horror movies. So for
Sure.
instance,
I wonder if you're going to say another one that's in my head.
let's do it on 3. 1, 2, 3. The
Let
Conjuring.
the right one in. Oh man.
So that's also that's also on my list. So let's talk about those 2 things.
Okay.
Let the right one in is on my list because there's something very romantic about it in terms of like the it's not even a platonic relationship, it's that relationship between the vampire and their why can't I think of the word? Guillermo.
Familiar?
Familiar.
Yes.
Thank
Oh my
you.
God.
Okay, great. Yeah.
The kind of like the submissive aspect of it, but also on the flip side, this like this true partnership of survival. There's something very, even though they're children, or at least he's a kid and she's God knows how old, and the imbalance of power there's something very, also the tone of the movie is kind of romanticizing this familiar position.
Relationship.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, you're right in that like it's kind of framed as this like innocent thing if you look at it from the perspective of like the young boy, but when you think about it from the perspective of like this young girl looks like a young girl, but she's actually a vampire who's much older, like it is a lot more insidious and disturbing. So like you're kind of flipping back and forth between like this, charming, like young, like very young, but just like oh, do you want to like, go steady kind of thing versus this like, when you see the other relationship, this long-term relationship with her former familiar, just the the differences of like what each of them are getting into, and it's, you know, it's appropriately disturbing, a little bit like heartwarming, and then lots of weird and gore. So
yeah, I really want to see that again right now.
And definitely better than the English language remake,
which isn't awful, but it's not necessary.
No, agreed.
I also saw a stage production of it, and the pool scene on stage was incredible.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah,
to
I
me.
saw it in Brooklyn. It was really good. And then last thing I want to say is that like there are so many awful couples in horror movies, like the Paranormal Activity movie. I mean, we could name a million of them. I'm not going to do it right now. But like sometimes it's just really nice to see, forget who the Warrens are in real life. It's really nice to see the Warrens in the Conjuring movies just like have this like real partnership, like lovely relationship where they're bouncing off of each other, they're helping each other, they know what each one's strengths are, they try to protect them and whatnot. It's just really lovely, you know, in as portrayed in the movies. And as we all know, family will save, the love of your family will save you in the end of the day.
Yeah, the Warrens just live a quarter mile at a time.
Oh my God.
But happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Watch some horror movies. Watch Bride of Chucky, because that's not toxic but delightful. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Hello, Horror Hour with the Hannah's podcast listeners. My name is Taryn. I talk all things film and TV, and my favorite genre is, of course, horror. And you can find me on TikTok, Instagram, and Letterboxd at Cinema's Charm. I post reviews, recommendations, and just general thoughts on all things film and TV, so make sure to give me a follow. Thank you to Matt and Hannah for inviting me to be part of this special Valentine's Day collaboration. I've collaborated with them a couple of times on the podcast and on TikTok, and it's always so much fun collaborating with them in any way. For my segment on this special Valentine's Day collaboration episode, I am going to recommend a few horror rom-coms that I think would make for a perfect Valentine's Day triple feature. First up is last year's Hard Eyes. When the Hard Eyes killer strikes Seattle, a pair of co-workers pulling overtime on Valentine's Day are mistaken for a couple by the elusive couple hunting killer. Now, they must spend the most romantic night of the year running for their lives. Obviously, you like horror if you are listening to this podcast, but if you also like rom-coms, I can almost guarantee that you will enjoy Hard Eyes. The slasher rom-com setup just works so well. It's genuinely funny while leaning just as much into the horror element as it does the comedy element. It kind of harkens back to the campiness of 80s slashers, and it doesn't take itself too seriously. And it was gorier than I expected it to be, but it fits in well with the tone of the movie, and I think it will satiate that crave for horror elements for most people. Olivia Holt and Mason Gooden play the two main characters here, and they have a ton of chemistry, and there's a scene at a drive-in theater where they're being chased by the killer, and they kind of have to go in and out of cars, and it's just super fun. My next recommendation is Zelda Williams and Diablo Cody's Lisa Frankenstein. It takes place in 1989, and it follows Lisa, played by Katherine Newton, who is a misunderstood teenager and has a high school crush who just happens to be a handsome corpse, played by Cole Sprouse. After a set of playfully horrific circumstances bring him back to life, the two embark on a murderous journey to find love, happiness, and a few missing body parts along the way. I had an absolute blast with this movie. It's the perfect mix of 80s campiness and zany, balls-to-the-walls humor that you want out of a horror comedy. Katherine Newton is obviously a scream queen, but she really shines here because she gets to experiment with being just downright weird. And Cole Sprouse does so much with his body language since he is silent for the entire movie. It's delightfully strange and really just the perfect Valentine's Day horror rom-com. And my last recommendation would actually make for a perfect double feature with Lisa Frankenstein if you didn't want to do the triple feature, and that is Your Monster, starring the amazing Melissa Barrera. A recovering cancer patient and recently dumped by her long-term boyfriend, soft-spoken actress Laura Franco finds her voice again when she meets a terrifying yet weirdly charming monster living in her closet. Now, Your Monster actually takes place around Halloween, but because it is a rom-com at heart, it fits in perfectly with the Valentine's Day season. It's funny, charming, heartfelt, and unabashedly weird. It's a horror-esque rom-com with musical theater elements that is just way more wonderful than it has any right to be. It's sort of like a modern-day Beauty and the Beast, but with more humor, and the monster actually stays a monster. I love the ending of this movie. It is weird, it's strange, it kind of comes out of left field, but it somehow works perfectly for this story. So if you find yourself with no plans this Valentine's Day weekend, I hope that this triple feature puts you in a better mood, takes your mind off things, makes you laugh, and satiates your need for a little bit of horror with your viewing experiences. Thank you again to Hannah and Matt for inviting me to be part of this Valentine's Day collaboration. And once again, my name is Taryn. I talk all things film and TV, and you can find me on TikTok, Instagram, and Letterboxd at Cinema's Charm.
Hi, I'm Reggie, one of the hosts of the movie Postmortem podcast, the podcast where we dissect films of all kinds, whether they're classics, flops, or guilty pleasures, and we try to figure out what worked, what didn't, and why we keep coming back for more. First, I want to thank Horror Hour with the Hannahs for inviting us to share something for this Valentine's Day themed episode. I want to talk about one of the most unsettling love stories ever made, in my opinion, Let the Right One In. Let the Right One In is a 2008 Swedish horror film. There was an American remake. As is usually the case, the original is better, but I actually like and enjoy both versions of this story. And the reason I like this film is because it's a story about love, but not in the traditional romantic sense. The way that most horror films talk about romance or love is whether or not a relationship can survive the horror or the monster that they're going to encounter. Let the Right One In isn't about traditional romance. It's about what people are willing to do for love or simply human connection. In Let the Right One In, we're introduced to Oscar, a young bullied boy who encounters a very interesting young girl in his apartment building. What we learn over the course of the film is that this young girl, who goes by the name of Eli, is actually a vampire. And Eli has a very untraditional relationship with an older man named Hakan. Hakan is one of the most interesting characters in this film because his relationship with Eli really parallels what Oscar's relationship with Eli will be. This is a story of love stripped of romance and intimacy in many ways. Hakan, an older man who is in his 50s or 60s, does all the hunting for Eli, who in this story is a girl at about the age of 12. He kills for her, he organizes his entire existence around keeping her alive. And then when everything goes wrong with this plan, he sacrifices his last bit of blood in order to help keep Eli alive. This is a very crucial moment in the film and one of the best depictions of the sacrifices people are willing to make for love because his relationship is no longer about tenderness or any type of affection. It's just really boiled down to purpose. His job is to keep her alive, and that's enough. When he dies, his role in Eli's life is complete. And this parallels what we see happening with Oscar in the film. In the beginning of the film, we see Oscar, this young boy who is bullied and almost ignored by his parents in many ways. He doesn't just want to be safe, he wants power. We see him trying to hype himself up to fight back with a knife against the bullies who are tormenting him every day at school. And when Oscar meets Eli, when her and Hakan move into their building, he's initially pretty weirded out by her. She's barefoot, she smells terrible, one of the side effects of not feeding in a while, so he's not really romantically interested in her, even at this, age. What really seems to draw Oscar to Eli is that she's willing to spend some time with him. He bonds with her over their love of puzzles, Rubik's Cubes. She makes him stand up for himself, and he really starts to fall for her. He eventually realizes that she's a vampire. Even when Oscar learns that Eli was actually castrated back before she was turned into a vampire, it doesn't bother him. He's not actually drawn to her physically in that way. He's drawn to the bond that she has, the understanding and the connection that they actually share. And I feel that's one of the things that allows this to be a love story without a true traditional romantic angle. Oscar wants to be with Eli, even if he doesn't know what that really means physically. The thing that really links these two relationships, the one that Hakan and Oscar both have with Eli, is that their love for her really makes them choose to keep Eli alive. Because Eli is trapped in the body of a young child, She can't feed herself very easily. She can overpower a person once, but it's something that's very hard for her to do. And you get the idea that without another person, especially a much bigger adult person to help her, she would just be left to her own device and she wouldn't survive very long. Hakan, this older man in her life, he could simply stop helping her. He has become a serial killer going around stalking prey, draining their blood so she can feed. You can tell he hates himself at this point in his life for doing this, but he doesn't ever stop doing this. Even at the cost of his own humanity, at the cost of his own life, he is doing everything he can to protect her. Oscar is not there yet, but he does have an equally powerful moment where you see him making the choices because of his connection to Eli in order to protect her and keep her alive. Following the traditional rules of how vampires operate, we see that the vampire Eli has to be invited into Oscar's home. He asks, well, what happens if you come in without me inviting you? Eli walks in and she starts to bleed from like every orifice in her scalp on her head. And you get the idea that she's going to die unless Oscar says, no, I let you in, please come in. And he does that. He spares her life because he is connected to her. He cares about her. He had a choice to let this horrible creature of the night just die, but he doesn't. He gives her consent, really, for this relationship, which is an important part of how vampires and love stories and romance works. There has to be a consent. You have to invite this person to be close to you. And so really in that instance, when Oscar invites Eli into his home, he crosses a line the same way Hakan probably did ages ago to take responsibility for this creature, this monster. So when you place these two relationships side by side, the parallels become very clear and very sad in many ways. You see that Oscar is on his way to becoming what Hakan is now. Whether he realizes this, the relationship that he has with Eli is going to change. One of the main reasons that Eli is interested in Oscar is because Hakan has grown too slow. He doesn't seem dedicated to his task anymore. Eli needs someone who will actually be able to take care of her, that is around her age and will grow strong enough and be violent enough to actually get the job done. And that's part of what she does with Oscar, is really essentially showing him that he has it in him to be violent, to stick up for himself, and more importantly, that he's willing to do things for her, including helping her to kill someone who is on her trail based on some of the shenanigans she got into earlier. We'll just put it that way. And that's why I say this is an interesting love story, because it doesn't have a happy ending, but I don't feel all love stories do. This is a story about what love or what a human connection makes people do. The way I really look at this film is that this is not the story about a boy getting a girl. In many ways, this is the story about a boy getting a job. He is going to become Eli's new caretaker. This is why I like Let the Right One In. Love can make people do things that they regret, make people do things that they shouldn't do, and I think that's why it's such a fun thing to explore in horror. So thanks again to Horror Hour with the Hannahs for allowing us to talk about Let the Right One In, and happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Will, host of the Red Treehouse, where I tell you the scariest stories to keep you up at night, and One Good Scare, where we explore our favorite horror movies. Special thanks to Matt and Hannah for the opportunity to share with you my favorite horror romance. Now, I know romance and horror movies don't usually go together. Sure, lots of horror movies have lots of sex and nudity, but romance not so much. So when Matt and Hannah reached out about recording this, I initially had some trouble coming up with something worthwhile, I guess. And then it hit me. Because there's an enduring horror romance. You can call it the best, you can call it the most persistent, you can call it whatever you want. But the best horror romance is, drumroll please, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, Michael Myers and Laurie Strode. Now obviously I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek, but partly I'm not. Because if you think about it, Michael has been chasing Laurie for almost 50 years, across 9 movies, through 5 distinct timelines. And I promise you, if you look up the word persistent in the dictionary, it should just be a picture of Michael Myers standing there. Of course, Michael's love for Laurie is one-sided and rightfully unrequited, because besides being a murderous fucking lunatic, Michael is the personification of evil who According to Dr. Loomis, sports the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes, and who the fuck wants to look into those for eternity? Listen, Michael's killed Laurie's friends, classmates, family members, community members, and he's almost gotten her in every movie they've shared. Michael has traversed movie after movie doing his best to catch Laurie, only to be stymied at every turn. He couldn't get her when she was in high school. He couldn't get her when she was working in a high school. He couldn't catch her when she was laid up in a hospital in 3 different movies. He couldn't get Jamie Lloyd, Laurie's daughter, at least not for a few movies anyway. And then the remakes came, and so did the retcons. Even with Rob Zombie's reimagining, Michael couldn't get Laurie, and it wasn't for lack of trying. I think he may have been distracted by the random fucking visions of the white horse and his mother that popped up at random times. And then in 2018, with the most recent trilogy reimagining, he was outsmarted by a now older Laurie who said, "Listen, enough of this shit." In Halloween 2018, Michael kills Laurie's son-in-law. In Halloween Kills, he kills Laurie's daughter, and damn near the entire town of Haddonfield. And in Halloween Ends, he tries to get to Laurie by way of her granddaughter. Instead, he gets fucked up, killed, and tossed into an industrial shredder where he is turned into paint. And at the end of all of this, 44 years, 12 movies, 5 timelines, and a total of 161 bodies, Michael loved Laurie to his fateful and long overdue end. Michael loved Laurie, and Laurie, she got her rightful revenge.
I'm Brianna.
I'm Joe.
And I am Steve, and we are from the podcast Is It Horror? If you haven't listened to us before, each episode we discuss a movie whose place in the horror genre is up for debates. We discuss the creator's intent, audience reception, and the tropes of the genre, all to determine, is it horror? There are no wrong answers, as horror is a diverse genre and all are welcome. You can follow us on Instagram at IsItHorrorPod, or search Is It Horror on your podcast app of choice. And the Hannahs have invited us to answer a couple Valentine's Day themed questions about horror. And what we opted to talk about real quick was to give our top 3 favorite horror couples and or our top 3 favorite horror romance films. So, what does everybody think?
Well, as far as couples are concerned, I think that this was difficult, number one. But the best toxic love is definitely Louis and Lestat from Interview with a Vampire. I think the best young love is R and Julie from Warm Bodies. And I think for the last one, the ultimate couple goals, for me anyway, are always going to be Gomez and Morticia Addams. And as far as movies, I really like Crimson Peak, which I would consider romance. And I also recently rewatched May, which is a total classic.
I almost put May on my list.
It's really good, right? And my last movie is Lisa Frankenstein because Diablo Cody is amazing.
She almost made it on my list in a few places, so.
Very nice. Well, I think Gomez and Morticia Addams is an awesome choice. So, but yeah, mine. So I just had movies and the couples from those movies that I mostly thought about. One of my, I guess, all-time favorite horror comedy, horror romance movies is Shaun of the Dead. With Sean and Liz, or Sean and Ed, depending on how you want to look at it.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. So, but that movie's just great, and I do like the relationship aspect of it. Another one that I really like along those same lines is Tucker and Dale versus Evil with Dale and Allison. And I really like that one for the relationship. And I like the kind of message that like kind of we're all people and there aren't levels and it's more about who we are underneath. And I just really like that movie. So that, and then the last one is, well, so it's only Lovers Left Alive, which I thought was a really interesting movie, and it was really interesting to kind of see like a vampire movie about a relationship that I felt like was different than other others of that type that I've seen before, and seeing like what the relationship is kind of spread out that far. And so, yeah, I guess those were mine.
It's interesting because I feel like there's a lot of crossover with stuff that people have said already. So I'm gonna go with my movies first. My third place pick is the entire Fear Street trilogy, because seeing those two ladies work it out and get together, that was good. I enjoyed that. It was worthwhile. So it's kind of got a like you can watch it in February kind of vibe to it, or just anytime because it's good. Then my number 2 spot is a recent horror movie release that I had been wanting to talk about for a while, but just hadn't really found a spot to do it, is Silent Night, Deadly Night remake, which I loved. It was really, really good. I was a big fan of the original, and then it was filmed here in Utah, so that's kind of fun because you can kind of visit some of the filming locations and things nearby where I live. I wasn't sure what I was going to think of the remake, but it was really good, and it was one of those where I was trying to pick movies where like you bought into the relationship there and you were like kind of rooting for the couple to get together, and that was definitely one of them where like you're watching the guy and the girl get together, and initially you're kind of, I don't want to spoil anything, but initially you're kind of like, oh, but he's a killer. You know that from the trailers. That's not the spoiler. It's like, oh, but he's a killer, so how can they get together? But then as you're getting to learn more about her, you're kind of like, that might still work. That might not be a deal breaker for her. Good movie. Very good movie. Very worth seeing. If you're a fan of the original, or even if you don't know anything about the original, it's still good. And then my number 1 spot was also Shaun of the Dead for a lot of the reasons Joe had already said, so I won't retread on that. But again, it's one of those where it was like, this feels like the romance is center stage as far as the film goes. So that was important in my picking. But my 3 couples are not from any of those movies. My number 3 spot goes to Selena and Jim from 28 Days Later. They're a great couple and they complement each other and they learn from each other. She learns that she needs to have more hope and be loving, and he learns that sometimes you need to gouge out a person's eyes. So they both grew as a couple, and that was great. And then my second one is Riley and Aaron from Midnight Mass, because first off, it's a great series, but then second off, they had that whole like sort of to some degree like trauma bond over being raised in a religion and then going their separate ways, going through lots of life trauma, and then reconnecting later in their adulthood where he's become an atheist and she's at least maybe not as sure about the organization. But I really like them as a couple and they complement each other well. They're good couple-y goals. And then like it's that whole like childhood unrequited love thing, so it's good. And then my number 1 is David and Amy from the John Dies at the End book series. Now, technically they are in the movie, the first movie that was made, but you don't really get to spend time with them as a couple in the way that made me really like the characters. There are 4 books. There's going to be a 5th book later this year. They are absolutely great. And I like how real they feel and how damaged they are, but still coming together. All of these couples are fairly damaged people that complement each other well and sort of like a haven for each other against the rest of the world. And I like that vibe. I think that's pretty cool. So there are my 3 couples and my 3 movies.
I was going to put Billy and Stu on there, but it's not canon that they were actually lovers, even though we all know they were.
I almost put them on there too. And you had mentioned to me Jennifer's Body. I almost put that on my list too.
I think Needy and Jennifer should qualify, even though, it's not really fair.
All right. Well, thanks for letting us join you at Horror Hour with the Hannahs and hearing a little bit about some of our favorite romantic horror movies and romantic horror couples. Hopefully you check out our show and tell us what you think about our picks. Tell us what your picks are, and we'll see you next time.
Hello, Internet. I'm the ghost with the blog, Lonely, and I'm joined by one of my favorites, Living Dead Talking Heads.
Howdy, folks. I'm Kanan. I'm one of the new hosts of the Nobodies podcast, and I am the recently self-entitled Plague Doctor Al.
And we're reporting live from Nobody's Horror Podcast, where we clean up the ugly things so you don't have to. And we are thrilled to be back on another Horror Hour with the Hannahs collab, especially for such a lovey-dovey episode. Tonight we're talking about some of our lesser-known horror romance films that we enjoy. So, Kanan, what is your favorite lesser-known horror romance?
So this is a cute little film that I picked up while watching on Shudder one time. It is called Extraordinary from 2019. The IMDb reads, Rose, a mostly sweet and lonely Irish driving instructor, must use her supernatural talent to save the daughter of Martin, also a mostly sweet and lonely individual, from a washed-up rock star who is using her in a satanic pact to reignite his fame. This film is very fascinating because if I could rate it on a scale from 1 to 10 in terms of actual horrific elements, 1 being clean, 10 being out of this world, it'd be like a 2 out of 10. It fits the horror premise with the satanic pact and kind of cultism behind it, but it's a very interesting, almost case study between 2 individuals who develop their love in the process of trying to save this other man's, to save the male main character's daughter.
I have never heard of this one. So you said this one's on Shudder.
Yeah.
And so would you say it's a B movie or is it like a full-blown like production?
Full blown. It's in my top 200 favorite horror films. It is a very good film. Like I said, I don't consider it the scariest, so it's lower on the list. But for what it was and what it tried to show, I really liked it.
Also impressive that you have a list of the top 200. I bet if I sat there and did that, I would also have that. I keep track of it, but not to that extent. So clearly, you're ahead of me in that regard. But I think you may have seen the one that I'm going to say, A Ghost Waits 2020. Have you ever seen that one?
Every podcast I've listened to before starting here has mentioned it, and no, unfortunately, I have not seen it, but I know the premise.
Yeah, so it's a cute one. If anyone hasn't seen it, it is a man's job requires him to clean a house, which turns out to be haunted. In the course of trying to exorcise the ghost, he falls in love with her. And yes, it's a little bit silly, but A Ghost Waits really grew on me. On No Bodies, we actually had the chance to speak with Adam Stovall, the director of this film. And what really solidified it for me was the deep undertones of mental health and sort of the way that relationships, I want to say can heal, but also can heal, I'd say. You know, love has a good impact on a lot of people. And I think there's some really dark undertones in A Ghost Waits. There's a lot of like silliness. This one is a B movie and it is in black and white. So if you go in with that expectation, I think it's a fun one. It does skew a little horror comedy and it is, like I said, a little silly. Where do you think you would skew on this one, Kanan? Would you give it a chance? Do you think you would land it? Or do you think this is totally not your cup of tea?
It is on my watch list, but it is on the lower portion of my watch list. Based off what you and some others have said, I definitely want to get to it though.
Like I said, it's cute. It's cute. You have to rent it right now, but we should rent indie films and support independent art. And Adam was a joy to speak with. So he's also really responsive on Instagram, but those are our recommendations for tonight. We've always got deep cuts on the show. And like I said, as lovely as it's been, we don't want to overstay our welcome. This is all the time we have for tonight, but you can catch Kanan, me, and the rest of our Living Dead talking heads over at Nobody's Horror Podcast. We will be returning from our winter hiatus on April 4th with new content, new hosts, and a new show format. You can catch our existing episodes everywhere you get your podcasts and keep up with our antics on Instagram at Nobody's Horror Podcast. We hope you have a wonderful Valentine's Day, or don't. That's entirely up to you. And we hope to hear from you on April 4th.
Stay spooky, stay lovely.
Hello, this is Based on a Book podcast. My name is Carrie.
I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Crystal.
And if you hear a cat in the background, that is our 4th host, Little. Thank you so much to the Horror Hour with the Hannahs for having us on their episode to discuss a really fun topic, which is something that I've personally been slowly introduced to in both books and movies, horror romance. Before we get into it, I think it's worth defining what we mean by horror romance. Lindsay, as our main horror reader and movie watcher of Based on a Book, how do you define horror romance?
Okay, so a horror romance is a story where love exists alongside fear. So where the romance doesn't necessarily replace the horror, but it's shaped, tested, or intensified by it.
Okay. I'm not really a horror person. I'm more of a sci-fi fantasy person. And I know that the way romance is balanced in stories changes how it's categorized. So in horror romance, is the romance an integral part of the plot? Or if the relationship isn't really pushing that plot, do you still consider it a horror romance? Or is it just a horror with romance?
I think I can handle this question.
She's like, I'm the expert. I got this.
I'm ready. I'm ready. So, in true horror romance, the romance is not decorative. It's actually structural. So, if the story still functions without the romance, then the romance is probably just subplot.
Okay.
It's just horror with flirting. Yeah.
Yeah. It honestly reminds me of whenever I read like a fantasy romance versus a fantasy book with a romance subplot. That's exactly what it reminds me of. Like that difference between those two different genres and subgenres. That's kind of the big difference for me.
In my mind, I'm thinking of like Edward Scissorhands, which obviously has romantic elements in it. However, the story of Edward Scissorhands would still exist without his love, without that subplot. I mean, it definitely adds, but it doesn't necessarily drive the story. Would that be kind of what you're thinking? I don't know, in my mind, it doesn't drive the story. Versus like Warm Bodies, where it definitely, like, Warm Bodies wouldn't exist without the love, without the romance there.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I feel like with Edward Scissorhands, I almost feel like the love does drive the story a little bit, though.
I think so too, because it's the love that it really drives him to leave his
That's
safety.
True. Okay, yeah. Okay, so that would still be considered horror romance then.
I think so.
Okay.
It's a soft horror, but it's
I mean, you know
still
me.
horror.
I'm not
It's
gonna watch the scary
cozy.
ones. It's cozy horror. That's more my jam.
It's Christmas horror.
I love it. I love it. So which do you prefer then? Do you prefer when the romance is driving the horror, the whole thing, or when the horror kind of intensifies that romance?
What do you think, Carrie?
I think it just depends. Like something like when I think of like a really good horror romance to me personally, I like the dark, the gothic, dramatic, like a horror romance to me is like Phantom of the Opera. Like or like Dracula. Like those are like my favorite types of like the spooky vibes and like the obsessive like characters. There's like a toxic feeling to it. It's probably most likely going to have some type of tragic ending in there.
Me, that's it. I want the romance to be the horror. Like we just got done doing Wuthering Heights, and that was to me peak horror romance.
Yeah. That is the horror.
Exactly. I want the romance to be the horror. For me, that's it. What about you, Lindsay?
I totally agree. I think Wuthering Heights is like prime example. Romance driving the horror is it's like it makes the horror more personal and devastating, and the love is the reason the terror escalates. So,
yeah. And that's like a good example of like without the relationship and without the romance in it, like the plot doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly.
The plot is non-existent.
Not at all.
I do like I feel like it has to have that really tragic ending and like dramatic like backstory though, to me personally.
So I have to ask specifically you two, because Carrie, you're more of our romance reader to begin with. Lindsay, you're more of a horror reader. in romance, a happy ever after is like 99% of the genre. It has to have that HEA. Lindsay, horror almost always has some sort of tragic or catastrophic ending. So how do we make those two things meet in a horror romance? Lindsay, what do you think?
I have to say that I don't like a happy ending in a horror romance horror. I don't want a happy ending. It feels like a lie. So I don't even want to go there. Make it tragic. Make me feel devastated. You know, I don't care. That's what I'm here for.
Okay. All right, Carrie, what do you think?
I don't know. Like, it honestly depends. Like, sometimes I'm right there with you. Like, I like a ridiculously tragic, really messed up horror movie. But sometimes I do like a really satisfying ending. Like, where, especially when we have like a good, like, revenge plot going on.
Ooh.
I watched Hard Eyes not too long ago, which is like a slasher rom-com. I would call that, I mean, would you call that a horror romance? I guess, but it's like, I feel like it's almost like a way different genre. Like, I've never watched a rom-com type horror romance like that. And there is a satisfying ending there where you kind of are like happy for a couple to be together in the end after they dealt with the crazy slasher this entire time. And I don't know. I do like a good revenge plot too, where they get like this satisfying ending.
Oh, happy endings definitely can work. But there is usually some kind of sacrifice attached. Right. So I'm not saying they're not there, but there's someone's losing something.
Yeah, true. You're like, someone's losing a life or a limb, okay?
Or even their sanity. Like, they could just... Yeah. There's trauma.
Pull a PETA and come into the sequel missing a leg, you know?
Oh my God, no! Forgot about that.
I know, right? You never know. You never know. But I mean, that's why I guess it's called a horror romance and not romance horror. Or would those be two different genres? Is there romance horror? I don't know.
Well, like, I've recently been diving into like books, like horror romance books. And that I've noticed that there is a big difference between what is obviously in the more horror direction or written by a horror author and more in the direction of written by a romance author. And the big difference is that happily ever after or that ending.
So the formula changes.
Yeah, the formula is different.
Okay. Well, that's neat.
Yeah, so I don't know how that's represented necessarily in movies, but that there is definitely, like, you can differentiate between the two when it comes to books, for sure.
Okay. Well, you guys might have sold me. I might have to look into a few more.
Yeah, you definitely do. Well, thanks again to Horror Hour with the Hannahs for having us on this really fun episode. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more as we drop episodes every Thursday covering book adaptations. And we can't wait to write down even more recommendations from this episode. Right? Bye!
Bye!
Hello, my name is Sarah, and I am one of the co-hosts of Paranormal in Pennsylvania. At Paranormal in Pennsylvania, we discuss the history and hauntings of various locations across Pennsylvania. We also do cover some places outside of Pennsylvania, so be sure to tune in every Thursday wherever you get podcasts. And we've done a lot of collaborations with Horror Hour with the Hannahs in the past. Now today I'm going to talk to you about my least favorite and most favorite horror movie couples. I'm going to start with the least favorite, and for many people this might actually be a hot take. For me, I hate Lydia and Beetlejuice. I know that they're loved and people dress up as them for Halloween, and the new Beetlejuice movie just came out recently, but I absolutely hate them. If you think of their relationship in the first movie, not only is Lydia a minor, which is definitely something of note, but he literally makes her sign a contract to be forced into the marriage.
And then that maintains into the second movie, spoiler alert, and she has to con him and trick him to get out of the marriage. Not only that, but it doesn't even make sense because in the second movie, we're introduced to another character that actively wants to be with Beetlejuice. So why do we have Lydia involved at all? I don't know. And I think that it's honestly kind of strange that people love Lydia and Beetlejuice so much because of the fact that, like I said, she is a minor in the first movie. I even heard that apparently some people want a spin-off of Beetlejuice that focuses on Lydia and Beetlejuice and their marriage specifically. I think that's incredibly creepy. I don't give any credence to that. I personally don't love Beetlejuice. I don't have any Beetlejuice merch or decorations or anything. Now, moving on to my absolute favorite horror movie couple, and this is Sweeney Todd and Mrs. Lovett. Now, I love a good musical, and I also love horror. Sweeney Todd is the best of both worlds. This is such a symbiotic relationship to me. I mean, come on. It cannot get more perfect. You have Sweeney Todd, who is killing people upstairs to provide the meat for Mrs. Lovett's meat pies, which were previously failing. Now that Sweeney Todd has stepped in and helped Mrs. Lovett, her pies are all the rage, and it just works out. He kills the people, she makes the pies, they can be happy and creepy and weird together. I'm not saying that I condone murder in your relationship, but this is definitely a cute thing to me. I also just love Tim Burton, so the movie itself I really think is good. Helena Bonham Carter and Johnny Depp are a match made in heaven. We've seen them in so many different movies together. And I think it's such a sweet story of romance and horror that it really gets to you because the idea that these two weirdos can be weird together is really, really sweet. And contrary to Beetlejuice, they're not making each other sign contracts to force them together, and neither of them are minors. Those are my hot takes on horror. I know that some people don't love Sweeney Todd, and they don't love that Sweeney Todd and Mrs. Lovett end up together since Sweeney Todd did have a previous wife and child, etc., whatever. I mean, you have to accept that with any horror movie romantic couple, there are going to be some things that are not realistic or not 100% happy because it is a horror movie. And an honorable mention for a horror movie couple that I hate has to be the Warrens. We have covered the Warrens on my podcast, on the Horror Hour with the Hannahs podcast, extensively. And anybody who knows the history of the Warrens knows that they were a bit of a sketchy couple. You know, again, we have some underage elements here. Again, we have some lies and manipulation of people. And this, because it's based on a real life couple, I don't give the leeway that I would give to other horror movie couples because this is their real life. This isn't written for a horror movie. These are actual people who actually did these things. So they're my honorable mention, but they can't take the top spot because I just hate Beetlejuice and Lydia so much. What are your hot takes? I would love to know, Matt and Hannah. You can shoot me a message, or if you want to add it to this podcast, let me know. I am a Beetlejuice hater. That's fine. I know you guys are Sweeney Todd stans, especially Hannah. Thank you so much for having me on for this romantic horror couples episode. And be sure to check out Paranormal in Pennsylvania wherever you get podcasts. Stay spooky, my friends.
Heather and Amanda from the Revisionist Almanac team. And we are here to not talk into a void about horror romance. Amanda, what do you think about when you hear horror or love, horror romance? What are your first thoughts?
I'm not a big horror person, as we've discussed a little bit before. And so when you told me about horror romance, I was like, okay, so I don't know any of those. That's a big hole in my film knowledge. But going through some things that I ended up noticing that I have seen some. Yay. I think, yeah. Okay, so things that I don't really think about as horror, other people categorize as horror, whatever. The things that I don't like about horror and the things that I don't like about romance, as in like, they're very boring to me. When you put them together, it seems like a lot more fun. So, you know, great subgenre I've discovered. Maybe I'm just missing this whole subgenre altogether.
Right. And I think, I like your point because, I don't like romantic films. There needs to be something more interesting there for me, whether it's completely bleak, which is great, or the horror element, which just makes it, as you said, more interesting. So and what I just generally love about horror, and what I do like about horror is, I'm also not a big horror person, but if it's got something to say, which I think horror always does, but sometimes you have to dig that little bit deeper. So if it's making comments on society, etc., and we'll come to that as well, because we do find that in this subgenre. So this was good. I went down a rabbit hole in prep for this, and it all started just by innocently asking my husband what he first thought of when I say horror romance or horror couples or stuff like that. And he said something and I went, oh, I didn't have that covered. And he says, oh, Misery. And I went, what? And he goes, Misery. And I went, what? That, okay. I mean, that's upset. I guess she was obsessed with him. And now, oh my God, that's another category altogether. Because I kind of had 5 categories written down. And then I'm like, oh no, we need to cover something else. And now I have 12. So
yes, this is a lot.
Yes. So we're not going to go into detail on all these 12. Everyone, don't worry. We are going to try and stick to our time limit that Matt and Hannah gave us. But we're allowing ourselves maybe 8 minutes per person, right? There's 2 of us, okay? They said 8 minutes. I was like, well, there's 2 of us. We'll see how we go.
Yes, this is a loophole.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. There's a little star, like an asterisk there. So, some people that we know have gone on for half an hour. So we're not going to do that.
Yeah, we're not going to be better than that.
Won't be doing that. No, we haven't seen enough films. That's the problem.
That's true. Yeah, I'm really bringing this down. You might be asking why I'm on this clip.
Well, you're going to discover new films. Although you did say to me, like, oh, I've seen some of these ones that you've suggested.
Yeah. I feel like horror is just like, what I think of horror is not actually horror, or the other way around.
So that is so true, though, because like everybody says things like, Silence of the Lambs, is that horror? Or Jaws, is it horror? And something can be horrific to you, but is it classic horror? I mean, whatever, right? Anyway. Yep. Right, we're just going to run through these 12 really quickly, kind of type of romance, love, whatever in horror films, and then we'll get to a little bit of a deep dive on our favorite. Well, I say our favorite, my favorite, and I just said to you, homework
that I watched. Yeah,
this is what I want to talk about. Done. And then we'll get to one particular couple, and then we will wrap it up. So. Right. Types of love and romance in horror. My first one that I came up was the classic monster-human romance, where the monster is kind of evil or predatory. Classic example here is Bram Stoker's Dracula, which, spoiler alert, we will be talking in more detail about later on. Any other ones? Just generally vampires, and it's very, very sexual, right? So, we saw this recently, like Sinners as well, had that element to it this year. I think that's the classic where, you might have a monster like a Frankenstein that's more threatening. The vampires, it's got that kind of that forbidden to it. That there's I think it's because of the biting in the neck and the blood. That's
a little sexy, all a little taboo. This is what I would consider like classic to me. This is what I think of when I think of horror romance. Is yes.
Exactly. That's lovely. We all want a vampire. Yeah. Then you've got a horror film where you have a human to human romance, like classic. But the couple already exists. I thought of an example being A Quiet Place. And then the pre-existing couple, but it deteriorates, The Shining. Not great, but I'm sure they were happy at one point. It just all goes very wrong. Then we have the human, where it forms in the backdrop. Well, the backdrop is the horror, and it kind of forms over the course of the film, or it's kind of tacked on at the end. And this is, I find, quite a tricky one to actually do well, because I think, does a horror film need a romance? And do you you might have the tendency to say, oh, we're just going to have this couple fall in love because why not? And I hate it when it feels forced.
Yeah, you had written that's like it's the trauma that's bringing them together.
Yeah.
And so it feels very last minute, like, oh yeah, of course they'll get together, but it's like, but it doesn't really feel realistic, I guess.
It doesn't feel earned sometimes, and you
Yeah.
question, well, how long are they going to be together afterwards? And it's like, oh, of course they get them together. So I like it when they put a twist on it and they end up not getting together. But one I do like, and that was done quite well, I think, and was earned, was the Selena and Jim in 28 Days Later. Like, she was badass too. Like, she was saving him. She wasn't just like a damsel in distress being like saved by Cillian Murphy. And that's why I think for 28 years later, The Bone Temple, spoiler alert, I'm kind of like pleased to see that it seems that they continued their romance
Yes.
afterwards. Yes. Whether she's still around, we don't know, but
We'll find out.
then I have the monster human, where the monster is misunderstood. He's just a baby.
Yes, this is probably the one that I know the most of.
Good, go for it, because
Yes.
I'm looking at my two examples and I don't like really either of these films.
Yeah, this is the one where I said, oh, these are horror, this being The Shape of Water and Edward Scissorhands, because these are both like goofy to me. These are more funny, not like comedy funny, but these are very goofy romances. But I like them. I like both of these movies, and I like the romance because it is kind of, it's a little cliche that they're, misunderstood, but I don't know. There's something about it. It works for me.
Have you seen the latest Frankenstein?
Yes.
Right. I was groaning a little bit with the Mia Goth, oh, he's so misunderstood with the creature. And at least they didn't necessarily go completely that way. And I know it's part of the book, etc. And I'm pleased they didn't go completely, like, oh, she's going to fall in love with him and everything. So they didn't do that, at least. But yeah, I'm not. Yeah. That's good. And then there's King Kong as well in that genre. Right. Okay. Then number 5, we have the. This is the one that my husband led me. Yes. So this is what led to the whole thing. The one-sided obsessive or toxic romance. Because my husband was like, Misery. And I said, okay. All right, fine. So fixation, abuse, intimacy becomes fear. Somebody's using the horror is, it's part of Misery. It's like quite obviously the physical horror of what she actually does to him physically, but it is one-sided. Like, she is obsessed with him. She is obsessed. She's his number one fan, and she kind of loves him or his creative mind in a way, but he does not. But he does kind of go along with it in a way to at least, keep himself alive, perhaps. So I had Misery, and I had Sleeping with the Enemy, which I saw years and years ago, but kind of similar in a way. Like, it's not necessarily horror; it's more psychological horror, which another great genre. I feel there's more in that, but I that's a good one. I like that one. The obsessive or toxic romance there. Then we have one that I went down and kept going further. Romance that disintegrates over the film. It begins as a romance and everything, and then the kind of, due to horror elements, it just breaks down for whatever reason. Now, you could say The Shining, but I don't know how much. I think he was, already kind of a little bit crazy there. Gets worse. I thought of Shutter Island there, maybe, although I don't want to spoil what is quite a twisty film, but there's elements
I have not seen this.
Okay, right. There's there's elements to that make me think that was never completely stable anyway, or like either of the characters involved. But yeah, that could fit in there. And then we have a mutually destructive or codependent romance, I said, where the passion leads to mutual ruin and the relationship becomes the actual monster. And here I thought of Natural Born Killers.
Yeah, this is a good one. This is a good category. I feel like these are the ones I would watch.
Right.
So they are more like psychological.
Yes, exactly. I love psychological horror. This is more my thing. Then we go off on a tangent and go into different kinds of love. So the parent-child family love. So I wrote down Train to Busan, where we have the daughter and the dad trying to survive the zombies. The Exorcist. At the end of the day, Ellen Burstyn just wants the best for her kid. Clearly, she's trying to get those demons out. And again, The Quiet Place. So
yeah, solid.
And then Found Family or Friendship Love. 28 Days Later again. So Selena and Jim, of course, we had, and then Hannah as well. I kind of, as a joke, wrote down Scream. I mean,
yeah,
they're friends.
Sure.
And then, I don't know if these are even more like sub-genres. I have seductive. So intimacy is a lure or a trap. And here we have the classic Bram Stoker's Dracula or Under the Skin. And then romance is manipulation. And here we could have, again, Sleeping with the Enemy or Get Out. So one person is, feigning affection, trying to deceive and endanger the other, classically, Get Out. Also going into the psychological. And then I have as my 12th. I have Love and Romance as a social culture and political commentary, where here to me it's a classic there as well as also Get Out. And I don't want to say too much about that because I know you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I'm very behind on this horror. This feels like kind of the overarching, like, what we want from horror. At least what I want from horror is you want it to be more dynamic. And so this is also a very good one.
Okay, good. But we are going to go into my favorite horror couple, the first one that came to mind when we were given this assignment. And you have had a very recent watch of this.
Yes, I finished it.
This is what I want to talk about, Amanda. And the first thing that came to mind with this assignment to me was Bram Stoker's Dracula and Mina. And I'm not going to say too much about it because you have recently watched it, and you are prepared. But I just one thing I really need to put in here is that Gary Oldman said the reason he took this role and was so keen to play this is so he got the one chance at it. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it because it's such an amazingly romantic line. He said he wanted to speak the words, "I crossed oceans of time just to find you," which is, oh my God, who would not want that said to him? Right. Anyway. Please, your thoughts on Bram Stoker's Dracula.
This is what I was coming back to earlier when I was like, these are the parts of horror and romance coming together that really elevate it, because I know that in the past I've been known to say things are campy and gay as hell. This isn't really gay as hell, but this is campy as hell and gay. And so this really was great for me because the whole thing is kind of ridiculous. And so it all somehow worked.
Of course.
Yeah. Gary Oldman, odd. Yes, when he's into one shape, the one figure, like as a man with the top hat, every other
with his little glasses.
Every other way, yes. Every other way is a little weird.
Not going for a white skinned old man, Gary Oldman, no, in the castle?
No.
Okay.
No. Not as him as like a werewolf for some reason, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Not my thing, but I don't know if the chemistry worked, but it sure felt romantic. The whole thing's very sexy. There's like 10 scenes, like every scene has nipples in it. It's very erotic. There's a lot of like large amounts of blood,
Yeah, it just opens as well, doesn't it, with a huge amount of blood where he stabs the cross, right? And then
And later, I think with Lucy at the end, it like is like coming from all sides.
Oh,
just out
yeah.
of nowhere. And I'm like, okay, not sure what that's about, but it's great.
What I also love about that film, and specifically the Dracula and Mina part of it, is the couple that is the established couple that you kind of think you should be rooting for. So Jonathan and Mina, they're so dull.
They're so boring.
So boring. So boring.
Like, of course, I'm not going to want to root for these people. Which I guess that works out for the point of the story. But like, God, they're so boring.
It's got nothing to do with their dodgy accents, Keanu and Winona.
No,
whatever they were trying to do there. I mean, they were trying to do it English, but
I was very convinced. I was like, how far into Keanu Reeves's career was this? Because he looked like he couldn't act the entire time. Maybe it was the accent. Maybe it was
he was so wooden.
Choice. I don't know. It was so weird.
Yeah.
So I was like, get this dude out of here. I don't care.
Get him to do the
Gary
Matrix.
Oldman back.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So you are absolutely rooting for, to go back to what we were talking about earlier, like sexy vampire. It's much more erotic, much more interesting. But then where Jonathan gets more interesting is when he's in the castle, and then these what are they?
Wives
these
of the
women
or whoever.
They just appear, and they're kind of like all sneaking over him, and that's when he gets interesting.
Yes,
that's much more sexual.
That scene, yes, like it's a very sexy scene. It feels out of nowhere, but it's good.
Good, we like that. We approve that. Anything else to say on Dracula and Mina?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it all worked out for me that I was really rooting for them. So I think it was a successful romance.
Good. Not such successful romance.
Well,
one of the questions was one of the questions that was asked as well. Like I'm not going to say it was a least favorite horror couple, and I'm going to shout out Get Out as well, because I know you haven't seen it, so I'm not going to say too much. And I adore the film, by the way. The film is incredible. When we were doing our CLPs, Cinema Legacy polls, that was the one where I was like, oh shit, I forgot Get Out. How could I do that? What have I done? And then I was like, oh, well, it's only like a certain number of years old. Maybe we don't know the legacy of it yet, etc. Quite frankly, I just forgot. It is such a good film. And it does start with what you think is a very healthy relationship. And then it develops in other directions. And that's what I'll say, because you need to watch it. And you should watch it.
Yes.
Please watch it. Okay, how are we doing? Ooh, we're only a little bit over our 2 times 8 minutes. It's fine. Okay.
It's fine.
So, what do we want to say about horror and love? What is the role of romance and sexuality in horror? A quick summary, Amanda.
I think it allows romance to kind of explore those more taboo subjects that wouldn't be considered in a regular horror or regular romance film, and I love that, because a regular romance is boring to me. I want the ridiculousness, so I think it's just what I want.
Yes, I agree. As you say, it uses it to explore the forbidden. It also exposes certain power dynamics and struggles as well, who is more powerful, the monster, the human as well. And notice how we're talking kind of more about there's some kind of monster involved in the romance, or at least some kind of horror involved in the romance, as opposed to the human versus human. Not so interesting. Still a part of it, not so interesting. Or how desire becomes the catalyst for the danger or for the horror, I think that's an interesting part of it. And as well, with romance kind of being a metaphor as well for fears in society, or, the bigger commentary on what's going on in the world, which, as we know, that's what it does. Horror is never just horror, really, for the sake of it, I think, as well. So, this was fun. Can't wait to see what everybody else says. you've got some homework to do and watching some
I have a
films.
lot to do. Yeah. Excited to explore the subgenre more.
Yes. So thank you to Matt and Hannah for inviting us to contribute to this. And we'll listen to what everybody else says.
Yeah.
Bye.
It is your two favorite hand-talking, rambling podcast friends. I'm Andrew from the Revisionist Almanac.
And I'm Britt from 1001 by 1. We're so excited to be here doing the Horror Hour with the Hannah's Bloody Valentine collaboration. We have barely prepped because life was busy today.
This is not the norm for me, Britt. I'm very scared. I have no agenda.
Okay, here's the thing. I know I got on a lot of tangents, but I usually have a lot of notes about what my tangents potentially could be. And I have like nothing for this. So
sorry, Matt. Sorry, Hannah.
It's going to be fun.
Okay, well, fortunately, Hannah was very, very gracious and gave us some starting points. So
yes.
I've got like some bullet points, and we can just talk through some of them. And
sounds good.
We'll just see where we go for the next 15 or so minutes. So buckle up, people.
Can I ask you a question first?
Yeah, please.
How do you feel about horror romance? Like, is that a subgenre that you seek out?
Never.
Yeah, me neither.
Okay. We're probably not the most ideal people for horror romance. Like,
oh my God. It's hilarious because as I was kind of like trying, honestly, I was like, what movies are considered horror romance? Because I don't know. And so I was doing like some research and being like, oh, what could be considered in this genre? And I realized I don't like horror comedies very much either because notoriously my least favorite genre of film is comedy. So I was like, oh, this tracks because I don't like comedies. I don't like romance. This is not my wheelhouse. But you know what? I'm putting in an effort.
We might cheat the system a little bit with what we define as romances, maybe?
1000%.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean,
yes, please.
Yeah, I immediately thought of The Ritual, which is our favorite movie to bond over.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a bromance.
Yeah.
I immediately, when Hannah sent this, I feverishly started Googling what defines horror romance because I don't think of movies as horror romance ever.
I mean, let's be real. Hannah once asked on Revisionist Almanac what our favorite romantic comedies were. And I said, I guess it's Mulholland Drive. Yes. So this is where we're coming from.
Okay, well, let's start with, I actually have a couple of notes for this one. And Hannah asked what our favorite horror romance films are. So do you have any that come to mind or that you did find?
Yes. So for one, Nosferatu by Robert Eggers. Absolutely. Yes. There is romance in there. And I'm not talking about with Count Orlok. I'm talking about Thomas and I'm talking about Ellen. I do think that they have a really lovely, complicated romance in that. And I would consider that a romance horror.
That's a good choice.
That was one. I also put Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person, which is like my favorite movie of the last year. Or 2 years, I guess. I think it came out in 2024. But it's so lovely. And I understand that title could be very off-putting. And this actually is a comedic horror movie with romance elements. And I still loved it. I thought it was fantastic. So I highly recommend people seeking that out. And then I also went with Sleepy Hollow by Tim Burton.
Yes.
Because it's just killer. I love Sleepy Hollow so much.
I was hoping you'd put Humanist Vampire. That crossed my mind because I remember seeing it when it came out. And I think I even messaged you maybe. And I was like, this feels like a Brit movie.
It is.
And it's very much a Brit movie. Yeah.
Oh my God,
I know
it's such a Brit movie.
You've talked about it several times on 1001 by 1.
I keep bringing it up. I keep bringing it up because I want the whole world
need to see it.
Love it as much as I do.
It's so good and it's fun and it's like a really good coming of age tale. And
yes. And I think it does something new and exciting with the vampire, which I love the subgenre of vampire. So many people find it really, really stale, but I think it's just perfect and we need more vampire movies. So I'm here for it.
Even though you're not a zombie person, which I just recently learned, which is a weird thing.
Yeah, no, I just kind of feel like zombie movies are retreading the same issues every single time. And I think a lot of people could say that about vampire movies, but I just have a greater capacity for my love for vampires over zombies.
That's fair. Now, when I was thinking of horror romance, the only thing I kept thinking about was I kept thinking of gothic horror.
Oh,
like
definitely.
those two like go hand in hand for me.
Oh,
and
I totally agree. Yeah.
I think the new Eggers movie fits into kind of that same
Yes.
bundling because it feels a lot like Bram Stoker's Dracula in a lot of ways, you know?
Yeah.
And,
so great.
We're of the same relative age. Like I have a lot of nostalgic softness for that movie, even though it seems like people shit on that thing all the time. But
It's not that bad. It's not that good, but it's also
Right.
not that bad. And
That's right.
I think I watch it every couple of years and I'm like, it's kind of trashy, but that's what I like about it. Like, give me that trashy romance.
Coppola just like let all the actors do their thing, and it was just
Yeah.
like fun because Oldman's going over the top, and
Keanu Reeves is trying.
he's trying, man.
He's really trying and failing. But everyone's allowed to fail.
Yes. And then the other person that just came to mind, and he just always makes movies that are really kind of in this style, and it's Guillermo del Toro.
Oh,
and
definitely.
Crimson Peak, which is I feel like it's starting to get a renaissance after about 10
I
years,
agree.
but like nobody talked about it when it came out, and it's kind of like coming back into fashion.
Yeah.
And I know The Shape of Water is a highly divisive film, especially having won a Best Picture.
It deserved it. It's really good. Like, I'm sorry, but get over it. It's a great film.
And I find the romantic elements of Sally Hawkins' character finding love with the creature to be really tender and sweet.
Yes, I agree. And that's one of those things that I don't love in horror romance when it's like a monster that has to be, like the love of a woman brings them around. Like I hate that. I hate the idea of mothering your lover before they become your lover. Like it's just weird to me. But in that particular film, it works really well. It's so sweet. And I think the two of them are just so perfect in it. And like, you know what? Yeah. Join him in the water, jump into that sewage water and enjoy your life. Like that's fine, Sally Hawkins.
And then the only other movie I could think of, and I haven't seen it in a while, but Park Chan-wook's been on the top of my mind because I'm dying to see No Other Choice, but nobody talks about the film Thirst.
It is a 5-star film. So you sent me over your notes first and I saw that you put Thirst on there and I was like, fuck. And I took it off mine because I didn't want to take it from you. But Thirst, God damn. Okay. Well, Thirst is kind of made for us because it's about Catholicism. So like, of course, it's like Catholic vampires. How can you go wrong? But God damn, Thirst is a fascinating movie. And that romance in it is real wild.
Yes. And like everyone celebrates Park for Old Boy and Handmaiden and now No Other Choice. But like this one's kind of under the radar still. So if you haven't seen it and if you like Park Chan-wook, if you like South Korean film, Thirst rocks. I think it's
if you like vampires.
Peacock. Yeah, exactly.
Vampires are very much a part of the romance aspect of horror.
Yes, of all the different subgenres, I feel like vampires easily fall into that box most easily. There's just like it's just baked into the idea of the vampire and the way that they transform you and the
seduction, everything that goes into it. And it's like problematic, but like whatever, we can have problematic faves. That's fine.
Okay, so I didn't make any notes I was trying more to celebrate movies, but I'm always up for like somebody shitting on a movie. Did you have any least favorite horror romances?
Absolutely.
Okay, I knew I could trust you to do this.
So one is Cat People from the 1940s. A lot of people really like Cat People.
People dig it.
People really dig it. And I watched it a couple years ago and I was like, this is trash. I hate this movie. I don't know. If you're going to have a messy queen, let her be a real messy queen instead of just like alluding to it and then having other women around that are better because they're not foreign. Like, I don't like it. I think it's problematic. Recent, and this is probably going to be divisive, but Lisa Frankenstein did not work for me at all. I just thought she was so unlikable. And I like an unlikable character, but she was so unlikable that I just did not care about anything that happened in that movie. And then Warm Bodies, which is like a zombie romance. And I don't like zombies. And I don't like romance, so
it was never going to work.
It was never going to work. Yeah. I do love Nicholas Hoult. I think he's amazing. So just not for me. But the one that I hate the most out of all of those is Lisa Frankenstein, for sure.
I've only seen it once, and I remember I enjoyed the nostalgic aspects of it. Like I felt like it got the period right or what it was going for.
Yeah.
But I've never once thought about it since I've finished watching it.
Well, Fear Coded has a great episode, and I was like, maybe I missed it. Maybe I did not understand Lisa Frankenstein. And then I rewatched it and went, just not for me.
What did they think? I have not listened to that episode. Do you remember if they were
Marilee
pro
really
or
liked it.
Okay.
I remember that. So
Okay. Well, you know what? Marilee's got good taste, so
yes,
maybe I'll cut it some slack. I never go back to Warm Bodies either. That's just not not my cup of tea. It's fine.
I just forgot it existed until this, until like trying to find a couple movies that I didn't like very much, and that was one. And I was like, oh, that movie exists. I forgot.
You know, the one that comes to mind, and it's funny because this will show the contradiction of who I am. I rated it relatively high on Letterboxd, but I have not watched it since. And the more I think about it, the grosser I think it is, and that's Luca Guadagnino's Bones and All.
Yeah,
which is like, I mean, I kind of get what he was going for, like the whole cannibal aspect of it, but I don't know. It's like the more I've seen from Luca, I don't trust his sensibility as much, and I start to question his motives and things. And so I don't know what angle he was coming from, and I'm a little bit disturbed by that movie the more distance I've had from it. But I remember liking Timothée Chalamet in it.
I like that movie, but I also have not gone back to it because it just I don't. It felt a little bit messy to me.
Yeah.
You know, I think it needed a clearer theme of what we were trying to get to rather than just let's eat people, which is what I felt like the movie's point was. And I'm like, that's not really a point. I don't feel like there was much under the surface, but
yeah, that was the only one I could come up with. But I also rated it a 4-star. So what the hell do I know on Letterboxd?
No, that's okay. Sometimes 4-star movies are movies you're never going to watch again. And
that's right.
I stand by a 2-star that you will watch every year. So
I also appreciate that you're unafraid to call me out on my Letterboxd scores all the time.
Yeah, like Mulholland Drive being a 4.5. You coward. Oh my God.
I've got like 8,000 ratings on there, and every now and then Britt will just be like, "What the fuck, man? What?"
Every time.
Okay, let's talk good couples and bad couples because I've got some lists here while we've got time.
Yeah,
Gomez and Morticia Addams is they're my couple goals. Like if there's ever where I'm like, okay, this is the kind of romance I want to have with Alicia, my wife.
Absolutely,
it's Gomez and Morticia.
I think that's totally fair. She's totally a Morticia, so
she is a Morticia.
100%.
I'm not a Gomez, not at all though.
I wouldn't say you're a Gomez, but you know, hey, something to aspire to, I guess.
Are there any couples that you really like from the genre or from horror?
So I will let people know right now, my couples are a little, it's not like I aspire to be like these couples. So just keep that in mind when I say this. My first one is Lucy and Anna from Martyrs.
Oh, God.
That's why I say that. But I do think that they have a very loving, interesting, complicated relationship in that movie. And it's worth shouting out because there is a tenderness there that could have easily been bastardized in a film with that like subject matter. So they're with the first ones I put down. I also put Jennifer and Needy in Jennifer's Body because please give me more complicated female friendships. Oh my gosh, I love it. And I love that Jennifer's Body is having a renaissance. Ugh, it makes me so happy. And then I put Louis and Lestat in Interview with a Vampire. Again, super, super problematic, but they are so good in them. Specifically in Interview with a Vampire. Like, they're so good together. Oh my gosh. And in the series. So, like,
are you a Queen of the Damned fan?
No.
Okay. I remember seeing it opening weekend because I was really into the soundtrack at the time because it was like Jonathan Davis and but the movie's trash other than Aaliyah.
Terrible movie.
Yeah.
Aaliyah's very bad in it, but she looks great.
Very pretty. Yeah.
Very pretty.
That's
that
right.
walk of hers where she's like walking like a snake. Oh God.
I don't even remember who the guy is that plays Lestat because he's so bad.
Stuart Townsend, I think. Is that his name? He played he was supposed to play Aragorn in the Lord of the Rings, but he was deemed too young after like a week of shooting, and then they recast Viggo Mortensen, which is like obviously the choice.
Upgrade, yeah.
Huge upgrade. And he also was in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. He played the Dorian Gray.
Oh, okay. I have not revisited that movie in a long time. Yeah,
we did. You don't have to. It's
they just
pretty
need to,
bad.
They need to remake it. It's a good.
I agree.
It's got the good bones, like the
Yes.
graphic novel is really strong.
Yes.
Yeah.
And these are all like my favorite kind of stories. These are all gothic horror, like from the Victorian times. So of course I love it. And Dorian Gray is one of my favorite books ever. So that's why I remember who played him, because I was like, oh.
There's only one other favorite couple I want to shout out really quickly, and we'll throw Fear Coded out there again because I got to do an amazing episode with them in 2025, and we covered The Lighthouse, which has one of the great relationships in recent memory with Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe, because there's like layers upon layers upon layers with that pairing, and what's real, what's not real, who's who. There's so many dynamics at play, so much psychological stuff going on with the relationship and the sexuality of those characters. And so I love The Lighthouse, and I know you're a Lighthouse stan too.
Huge Lighthouse stan. I think that's perfect, and I totally agree with that. It's their relationship that is so interesting. I particularly think when they're drinking like the kerosene and they're just screaming up into the light. Oh God, it's good. God, it's good. I love that movie. I want to go watch it right now.
Okay, on the flip side, there are plenty of messy, terrible least favorite couples in horror. For me, the obvious one, I did not have to Google this. Danny and Christian, Midsommar.
Oh God, yeah.
Like it's all him. He's the worst. He is the absolute worst.
He's the absolute worst.
I mean, I love that movie so much because I like watching him suffer so much every time I go back to it.
They also he also is a victim, and he's allowed to be a victim even if he's a terrible person. Terrible people can be victims too.
And I appreciate that the director's cut makes him look like even more of an asshole.
Agreed.
Because there are some scenes that really highlight how terrible he is and how little he cares about the relationship.
God, he sucks. God, he's so bad.
So bad.
He's so bad. Oh my gosh. I put down I also had Willem Dafoe on my list, and I put down Willem Dafoe and Charlotte Gainsbourg and Antichrist. They're just like a real bad combination.
Yeah. You're getting a real good idea of the sensibility of Brit and myself when she's throwing Martyrs and Antichrist out here. We are not horror romance people.
Movies? Yeah. It was more like, is there a relationship? It's a romantic horror.
Because the next one I have is Asami and her victims in Audition.
Obsessed. But see, that would be my favorite. I don't know what you're talking about. My Queen Asami. She's just living her life, using her piano wire however she wants.
I mean, another situation where I sympathize with the woman. She's
absolutely.
The men are not treating her well.
Absolutely. She's a messy queen that probably goes too far, but I stand her no matter what. I have Lola, Princess Stone, and Daddy Stone in The Loved Ones. The Loved Ones is a great movie. It's an Australian horror film about prom, and the relationship between Princess and Daddy Stone makes me so uncomfortable. It's so hard to watch. And then everything that happens with Bright Eyes, saying these are my least favorite doesn't mean I don't love it. Like, I absolutely love it, but also least favorite because it genuinely makes my stomach turn when I think about Princess and Daddy Stone.
You recommended that movie to me a while back, and I just finally got around to watching it last year. And it was sick in the best possible way. It was just a blast, a lot of fun. Australians know how to do horror.
Oh, Australian horror is really, really fucked up. God, there's something so nihilistic about it. I feel like in other horror, horror coming from certain places, it feels like a spirituality. At the end, you can think that maybe these souls go somewhere. And in Australian horror, I'm like, there's no souls. Everybody's dead. When you die, you die. There's no redemption.
I think the first Australian horror movie I saw was probably Wolf Creek. And it's so bleak, and you're just like, okay,
so bleak.
Yeah, this is their mindset for
Head
everything.
on a stick.
Yes. Okay, well, The Loved Ones is a good segue to the next part, which is Hannah was wondering if we had any lesser known horror romances. Do you have one that you want to shout out?
I have three. I want to shout out really quickly. May by Lucky McGee, which is about a girl who wants to find a boyfriend and can't, so she decides to build a boyfriend. Oh my God. May is so good. Everybody watch May. I have November, which is a very strange folk romance. And there's a a creature that's created out of like nothing basically, and there's a boy loves a girl, or girl loves boy but boy loves other girl, and it also takes place in the Middle Ages. So like have fun, go for it. It's really beautiful to look at. It's in black and white. And then my last one is a horror musical that's a take on The Little Mermaid, and that is The Lure. Oh my God, I love The Lure. It's so wild, it's so weird, and I just highly recommend it to everybody.
You have at least recommended that one to me, and I was just looking at November, and I have it in my watch list on Letterboxd, which tells me that you probably also recommended that to me, because there's no way it'd be there.
I definitely did.
I need to get to that, because that sounds really cool.
It's really cool. It's really cool. And again, I didn't write down any notes for any of these, so I apologize for my horrible synopsis of November, but as crazy as that sounded, the movie is great, so please go watch it.
And I only have one shout for lesser known, and I know you were really excited when I threw this on my notes, because we have bonded over this movie in the past. 2014, Benson and Moorhead, who are really cool,
really good.
Sort of like underground, kind of like independent filmmakers. The movie Spring.
God, it's cool.
So good. Like, and it was one of those movies I watched probably like during the pandemic or something, and I had never heard of it, didn't look up a synopsis, went in blind, was totally transfixed by the setting, the style, the characters, everything.
That's the perfect way to go into it. Don't say anything else about it. Just watch Spring.
Yes. Watch Spring.
Worth it. It's very cool. And even saying saying anything about it would give it away. And we can't
There's a great relationship in the movie. That's all I'll say. A really interesting relationship.
Very cool and interesting. Oh God, I love Spring. Yeah. More people need to be talking about that movie. It's so good.
Really, I don't necessarily love all of their stuff, but I think Benson and Moorhead do really creative, interesting things with all their movies. I've been a fan of everything they've done. Even
if I don't enjoy the experience of watching the movie, their ideas are very interesting, and I'm always going to seek out a film that they've done.
Yeah, what's the one where there's like a loop? There's like a time loop, and people are stuck. The Endless. I didn't love where it went, but I was really intrigued by the process of how they made that movie. I thought it was really cool.
See, and I liked the end of it, but I found myself, it was harder to get into it at the beginning. Like, I think I started and stopped the movie like 2 times before I actually got through it. And once I got to the kind of kooky weird at the end, I was like, oh yeah, great, I'm in. Fun. But before that, I was like, okay, is this just another cult movie? Right? So
they're cool guys though. I hope they do more stuff. I feel like I haven't seen a movie from them in a minute.
I mean, it's really hard to get anything funded at this point.
Yeah, they had to go and make Moon Knight for Marvel because they were trying to get something made.
Yeah. Yeah.
The less said about that show, the better. Yeah. I think the world has forgotten about Moon Knight. Okay, as we close out, Britt, are there any things that you want to throw out about just your general feelings about romantic relationships or sex and horror, or anything about the genre?
Sure. I did actually write something down for this, so let me see what I wrote. So like horror is problematic. We already know that. We know that it's a genre that really loves to kill women in horrific ways and exploit their bodies for entertainment. Full stop. If you need any examples of that, just look at the Terrifier movies, which I will go into soapbox about. I don't care. It's fine if you like it, but it's very, very mean to women. And I'm just saying you in general, just person listening. I'm not going to judge. Yeah, you, Andrew. I'm not going to judge you. I'm just like, that's my own personal opinion. I also think that sex and relationships totally have a place in film if there's a purpose within the story. If you're like, if it's benefiting the movie, then why not? The thing I think about a lot is Knife Plus Heart. Did you ever watch that film? It's like a French giallo film, and it takes place in, I believe it's 1970s or 80s France, and it's about a porn director who is filming gay porn, and there's a killer going around killing all of her actors. And without it's a movie about porn. So if we didn't have any scenes depicting that, I feel like it wouldn't be true to itself. And it works within the film. There are problematic aspects of the movie, but I just think like that's an example of like, without it, what's the point? Why would you make this story if we aren't going to showcase what the movie's about? The sex scene from Midsommar, really important. Very, very hard to watch. But it's also like, I can't imagine it being excised from the film because of delicate sensibilities. So like anything else, if you don't like watching people have sex or be in relationships in movies, look up the movie before you watch it. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean it doesn't have a place there.
Yeah, I had no notes for this. I mean, I think there's always a place for sex in film if it makes sense to the story, like to your point. And I know there's this great like sort of back and forth. I was just seeing some social media clips today about there's this idea that like Gen Z moviegoers don't want sex in their movies. And I think it's hard to like encompass an entire generation into that. But I do think that there's an element of sex that's important to show on film, to get people to talk about that in real life and, you know, open windows into subjects that you're not familiar with and things that you're not comfortable with. Like, it's good for us to have those conversations. And, and a lot of times movies open that door. To your point, though, especially the third Terrifier movie, I almost turned it off at a certain point because I'm like, what are we doing here? It's so violent, especially to women, that it just feels, I don't know, it feels really gross and just, it pushes the line just for the sake of it. And I don't need that in my horror.
There's a really interesting YouTube video I just watched. I believe it's by Girl on Film on YouTube. And she's incredible. She does a lot of cool stuff. But she did the Saw movies. And she did a retrospective about if they were depicting a ton of violence against women or not. And it was a fascinating watch because she actually had a lot of points of like, this is not a series that's going out of its way to harm women. And this is why. It was very interesting. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with everything that she said, but she had a lot of really good points. And I think a lot of it comes down to intentionality, what the director's intentions are. When you watch something like Eli Roth's Hostel, personally, the intentionality is to be cruel. Like, that's the point of that movie. And sometimes the to be cruel is okay. Like in Wolf Creek, we are depicting an extremely horrible person. So people are going to be cruel. And there's a reason and an intentionality behind that. Whereas in something like Hostel, when he cuts somebody's eyeball off, it's just to be gross and it's just to degrade the person that we are watching on the screen. And I think it's that intentionality that makes a difference for me personally. And this is coming from a person who watches a lot of body horror and a lot of like what would be considered extreme cinema, which Andrew does as well, because we talk about it a lot.
There's a reason why we got paired up for the goriest scene of 2025 for the Hannahs.
100%.
So as you can see, horror romance is not our thing. And yet we still went almost 30 minutes. And that's what we do. That's what we do.
God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Matt and Hannah.
They told us to go like roughly, 10 to 15 minutes and we went 30, but
You know what? Whatever.
You know what you get when you sign up, the two of us, for something like this.
That's so true. There is one last question, and I just am curious what you have to say.
Okay.
Do you think that horror is a productive genre for discussing relationships?
Yes.
Agreed.
I think it's maybe more important than like romantic comedy or something like that, because I think it's not afraid to take you out into the deep water and really see the ugliness of people in relationships. And it lets you explore, it lets you see things kind of like from a distance, and you might be able to like put that into your own life and say, oh, maybe I should adapt the way I treat people or handle relationships or things like that.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of films are there to help you reflect on yourself. Like, the going back to the original like reason we have theater is it's to teach and to entertain. And anything that entertains you can also teach you. And so I think as long as there's a reason for it, it's fair game in a film. That being said, you should not be watching movies for relationship advice. Ever, especially not a horror film. Like
men will do anything to avoid going to therapy.
Oh my God, isn't that true? It's so true. But that's what I'll leave you on. Don't look at a movie and think that's how I should. I should. This is my therapy. That's what I would say. Go to actual therapy. It'll be really beneficial. I promise.
Well, that's going to do it for us. Thanks for listening.
Yeah,
Britt, it's always a pleasure catching up with you.
It's always chaos.
See you, Matt. See you, Hannah.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Horror Hour with the Hannahs. Make sure to listen to future episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever else you can find podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube, where we post episodes and shorts. You can follow us at Horror Hour with the Hannahs on TikTok and Instagram, as well as at Horror Hour on Blue Sky for more content. If you like the podcast, please follow and leave a review on your favorite podcasting app. Happy hauntings!